All right, hello, hello. I have to add my overlay and then, all right. How's it going, everyone? Let's add our chat. Haha. So one thing about Ecamm is I wish I could do the video intro and then have it go straight to my setup rather than bringing it up. But yes, 新年快乐. Tomorrow is Chinese New Year. It's a big thing here in here in Taiwan, the biggest holiday. Um, Everybody here has off for a week, so let's see. So I wanted to set up some cool things here because I wanted to talk about the North and keep things a little more focused because I got some complaints that our discussions we're all over the place. We're talking about Roose Bolton, then we're talking about abortion, then we're talking about um, uh, Daenerys, all over the place. So I'm going to try to keep things a little more focused, and so let's try to discuss. I was figuring we could talk about the North here. I got our I got a map here, and what I can do, and this is my kind of plan here. So we can kind of let's put Stannis on the map. And then, so Stannis is what? Going to be around here. And then, can I bring this to front? Oh well. And then, let's shrink, make this longer. All right. There are no complaints, only feedback. Exactly. Okay, hopefully. Everybody loves the live streams, I'm sure. Everybody loves every aspect of the live stream. All right, so we got Stannis, the most important character. So really, who else do we need? We need Dagmar, the second most important. Oh, do I want to use this Dagmar picture? This is Dagmar Cleftjaw. Do I want a better Dagmar? Dagmar's gonna be here. Probably gotta get a better Dagmar Cleftjaw than that. Um, the apparently people are still talking about American football, but I haven't been watching. So, but apparently that's happening right now. All right. So this is the one thing that I always thought is quite interesting when you look at the map is how close Stannis is to Dagmar Cleftjaw. So Stannis is like 3 days outside of Winterfell, and Torrance Square with the Ironborn right there, right there. You know, not far at all. Not to mention Castle Serwyn, which I always thought was a little weird because they're having such a food crisis. Like, are they bringing in? Why can't they grab food from Castle Serwyn? Or is that even happening? It's not mentioned. Is Serwyn just all out of food? Because we're not really sure where Castle Serwyn is, but we know it's only a day's ride from Winterfell, one day. So it seems like you could totally get food in, but maybe it's you never know what's oversight from the author or whatever. And then we kind of know that the map of Westeros looks like a cackling old man. maybe. So we kind of know as well that back in the Clash of Kings, Rob ordered this creation of the Stark fleet, with the Umbers, between the Umbers, Last Hearth, and White Harbor. And so somewhere along the White Knife here, we've got these ships. that no one talks about. So we can pop these guys here. Um, Now I had a question before we started uh, on let's see, pair of characters jumping in saying number one fan, Preston King. What's up with Peter Dinklage talking crap about House of the Dragon? I think he just said, let's Carmine and I did a lot of talking on about the Dink lately. And then cackling over an old net. I thought somebody had something about the Boltons. It must not have been a super chat. Yeah. How do you think? Here we go. Do you think the Dreadfort? Who do you think will get the Dreadfort if the Boltons are defeated? I don't know if there's time in the story to have like an established lord, but we definitely have the Dreadfort, which is right here, which actually isn't very far from the action. And here we're going to have, Theon knows how to get into the Dreadfort because he has this backdoor key kind of situation. And there's apparently only 50 people holding it. So you've got these ships, they can grab people pretty quickly from this battle, go down, and then go back up and attack the Dreadfort pretty quickly. This can happen very fast. So the Dreadfort is very, very vulnerable right now. If one wanted to take over pretty quick. Is it impossible to hide a fleet of ships in a river? It's a question of how much ice is going to be on the river. But we haven't really established how big the White Knife is. So George R. R. Martin lived in Dubuque, Iowa for a number of years when he was working as a prof at a university teaching journalism. And so, because George R. R. Martin majored in journalism, he has an undergrad and master's in it, and so he was actually teaching journalism at I forgot the name of the school, but it was in Dubuque. It's a small Catholic university, and so he got this obsession with the Mississippi River and Mississippi, like steamboat culture and the whole thing. So, he kind of thinks that all rivers are like the Mississippi. And so when he talks about like the Trident or the Rhine, he's thinking Mississippi size. So, capable of having these big riverboats, and I'm thinking that the White Knife is going to be like, these stories on the mighty Mississippi. So, it's big enough to get all the way to this huge long lake. So I guess this river is large in size, and so large enough to get over here and march people quickly over to the Dreadfort. Yeah. Can't believe journalism is a degree. I know it happens. I mean, what's funny is that he never worked in journalism. He studied it and he taught it and he never did it. He was a short story writer, science fiction writer. I mean, his hobby and goal was always to be a writer. It just he had stumbles. But yes, we're talking about the North, so I can talk about this one. What POV story do you think is best written overall? It's definitely Theon. I think Theon is the best written story overall. And I don't even know if George knows how good it is. Because he always talks trash about Theon. And let's pop Theon on though this isn't the right Theon. Maybe I should do I have a Reek picture? No, I've got this one. I got this one. Okay, let's pop Theon on here. But I think it's the best because Theon is so flawed, and so he's so relatable. Like his inner monologue, Theon's inner monologue is a jerk, and like the rest of us, some people are nice and some people are jerks, but I think everybody's inner monologue is a jerk. Like nice people don't say stuff, but they must be thinking it, right? And Theon actually thinks it. So when you get into John's head is like he's nice on the outside, he's nice on the inside, right? Brienne is nice on the outside, nice on the inside. I don't know if that's real people, right? Like, aren't real people jerks who like bite their tongue and then say things that are nice? Maybe. I mean, I only know my own inner monologue, and I know my own inner monologue is a jerk, and so and then I kind of I scold myself. Oh, I shouldn't think that. That's not right. But Theon's inner monologue is so true. Like, it's so filled with insecurity. It's so filled with like you know arrogance and insecurity simultaneously, and so he I don't know, he seems like a real person, but not like overly crazy. Like when you read Cersei, she's overly nuts, right? I don't think people's inner monologues are like hers. And then maybe some people's inner monologues are like Aaron, because I think Aaron is really, really well written, but Aaron's also just, a religious zealot. So, um, and so this is, I mean, objectively, John can be a jerk. I mean, but he's, you don't hear him saying just like insulting things about people or arrogant things about himself too much. But, but yeah, I mean, this is the thing is 50% jerks, 50% nice. Like, are we all, huh? Um, anyway, we'll get to this. If we're talking about the North, I've got to answer this on from a North kind of perspective. So I've been trying to convince everyone that maesters are a hostile source in Fire and Blood without sounding like a lunatic. What's the secret? So first off, in A Dance with Dragons, we have Lady Dustin's like opinion of maesters, which matches Maester Marwyn's opinion of maesters, and they think maesters are these manipulating forces, and they give Lady Dustin gives a very, very very convincing background on how a maester can be in people's good graces and how they are in a prime position to manipulate people emotionally. Like, these are the people that deliver your babies, and they're the ones that care for you when you're sick, and they're the ones that teach your children. It's really, they are in this part of the family emotional connection with everyone. I mean, we can see at the beginning, Catelyn like doesn't care that Maester Luwin sees her naked because he's like, who cares? Like, he birthed all of my children, though I don't know how he was able to birth Robb unless he was previously the maester at Riverrun. I don't know if that's a mistake or if Luwin moved from Riverrun to Winterfell. And then she goes and proceeds to talk about incredibly secretive stuff, dealing with her sister and the possible murder of Jon Arryn, and in front of Luwin. Like, he has their trust, he has their, and so they're in this position to manipulate. Now, if you want to talk about like how to convince people in Fire and Blood, you can just look at like the negotiations between the blacks and the greens and the maesters in between, and how things are written, like what offers are given and how they're reacted to. But I am going to be doing a line-by-line analysis of the Rogue Prince and Princess and the Queen in preparation for House of the Dragon. So I will get into all of that. This is funny. The maesters are teaching critical race theory. It's more, I think it's more the opposite, right? They're actually whitewashing history, right? They're teaching an altered version of history. They're not teaching the truth. Critical race theory would actually be teaching, what actually happened. Now they don't want to teach slavery in American. If we tell the kids about slavery, they'll learn to hate America. So, it's a it's pretty interesting. But like I say, the you've just got to look at the negotiations in Fire and Blood, when there's and the maesters who are put in between, um, to figure that out, to really look at it. But I'll be doing the line by line analysis. I don't know how long it'll take me to get to Princess and the Queen, because Rogue Prince is a while. But we're gonna see how that goes. Line by line analysis of the entire series. Do you know how many years it took me to do just the sample chapters? I mean, that's the thing. Did it take a whole full 5 years? That was gonna be yeah. Oof. Yes, we are staying on the topic of the North. Okay, all right. So we've got Dagmar Cleftjaw here now. Um, One of the things I always thought was quite interesting is when we've got da, da, da. Let's see here. Do I have a picture of Wex? All right, I gotta grab one. Oh, I do have Wex here. All right, here we go. Good old Wex, the character that everyone forgot about and no one really expected to return to Dance with Dragons, and he returned. Um, One of the things I always think is funny is the um, was after um, the fall of Winterfell and say your Wex. And the supposed story is that he somehow follows Osha and Rickon to see that they went to Skagos or something, and then ends up in White Harbor. But if you're a little boy and you're in Winterfell, why wouldn't you just go to Torrance Square where Dagmar Cleftjaw is? Like, you're an Ironborn kid? Like, this is the easiest. You just be like, huh, run here. Which is why I think there is some sort of negotiation between the Ironborn and the Manderleys. I think there's something that's unsaid, because it just doesn't. I mean, this might be a mistake from George R. R. Martin, um, but come on, like like logically speaking, like everyone, like the first thing it would be, I need to go to Torrance Square. First thing, the second thing would be, I'm going to go to Deepwood Mott, right? Like I'm an Ironborn. Like, why would I be like, oh, I'm going to follow these people randomly? And then end up in White Harbor? That makes no sense, which makes me think that there's some sort of Ironborn connection to it all. I got pulled into something. Staying on the North. Dude, well before CRT, 50% of US history was about racism and civil rights. Get real. I don't know. My history always ended at World War II. When I did history class, we never got as far as civil rights. Like, I mean, I had history class in two different states in America, and it was always like, oh, what the South had a point too, kind of stuff. And so, no. I mean, I took it. We didn't even get past World War II. World War II is too big of a topic. You get to the end of the year and you're like, World War II. Didn't even get to Martin Luther King. So no. Carmine tells me, Preston, can you read? I was talking about some fire to me in Spanish while hanging upside down over a volcano on top of a black hole. Maybe for you. Carmine can read it to me in Portuguese. Carmine, have you ever read it in Portuguese? Are there any translation differences? That'd be the fun, George R. R. Martin, when I met him, like tried to waste all of our time talking about translation differences between like the French version of Ice and Fire, and how like they couldn't translate direwolf in French, and everyone at the table's like, no, we want to talk about other things. Like, no. History ended World War II. That's because you're 80 years old. I don't know. Like, you start your lessons on the American Indians, and you draw those maps of where these are the Eastern Indians, these are the Plains Indians. So you have a bunch of time on that, and then you go into Revolutionary War, and then you start wasting your time on like 1812, and you go war by war, which is a weird way of learning history, which is how I think most of us learn history, war by war. Um, and so once you hit World War II, like, what are you going to jump to the Vietnam War? Like everything, you know. So, um, let's see here. Da, da, da. Okay, so back on the north though, because we're sticking with the north. Now, who else would we have on here? Ah, let's get some Glovers. Let's get some Glovers. Oh, man, I need to get Robert Glover on the map. Um, there's too many real Glovers in real life that ruin my searches for good pictures of Robert Glover. There's a part of DC actually called Glover Park, and people in DC don't know if it's actually pronounced Glover Park or Glover Park. Um, and there's a lot of these places. Like there's a big square called McPherson, and everyone apparently the family actually calls the name of their family McPherson, but everyone says McPherson. Hmm. I did not know this. Is that true? Slavs are named after a slave? That's a fun fact, if it's true. Let's see here. Let's check the etymology. Autonym Slavo, people who speak Slavic, silent mute. I don't know. Let's check up the word slave etymology. Middle English, shortened to medieval Latin, Slavonic. The Slavonic people reduced to the servile state in the 9th century. Who are the Slavonic people? So slave comes from the Slavonic people. Oh yeah. Slavonic relates to Eastern European languages. All right. Fun fact. Thank you, Carl Karsnark. We're keeping it in the north. All right. That was pretty interesting. Okay. Huh. All right. So these Glovers. So weirdly, we've got Deepwood. We've got the House Glover, which is normally up here, and the Glover hostages down in the Iron Isles. See, I like building this map because it actually um, it helps me kind of figure out where everything is going. Oh, man, see, when I changed computers, I didn't put on all of my art from the Glover sigil. All right, let's do this. House Glover. Okay. All right, so we got these Glovers here. And then we got Glover here. And then we got Glover hostages down in the Iron Isles. All right, so which makes me also think there's something going on because Christopher Botley is released by the Glovers for no reason whatsoever and sold to Tychonosaurus, and he makes it here. And why would they get rid of Christopher Botley unless they had some sort of connection? Glover hostages are in the Iron Isles. Robert Glover is hanging here, quizzing Wex, who had every reason to go to Torrens Square. I mean, it seems like some sort of Glover Ironborn connection here. Um, this is interesting because let's talk about Davos for a second. So Davos has this chapter that most people kind of forget, um, which he lands on the sisters, which honestly, like you're right, not much um, happens with Davos on the sisters. The he it's if anything, it's mainly background for the sister men appearing in the Vale story. Because he starts giving the background on um, these sons who are all training to be knights, and then the three sons actually show up um, at the in the Elaine Sample chapter um, to be part of the tournament, to be part of Sweet Robin's tournament. So Davos lands on the sisters, and then he ends up in White Harbor, and this is where people start remembering the Davos story, and they start being like, "Woohoo, Manderleys, woo!" And then he ends up going to Skagos, and maybe he's back because that's like in the middle of A Dance with Dragons that he ends up on Skagos. But so some people reduce like the sisters down this Davos's visit to the sisters as, oh, he found out about the night lamp, and the night lamp is going to be some big part of Stannis's win at Winterfell. Though I mainly think that it should be um I think that Davos's visit there is mainly for the purpose of the Elaine story. Um yeah, this is the funny thing about Lord Burrell's webbed fingers and toes is whether or not, like, how do they relate to the stories of the Squishers? Um, were these sistermen just pirates who were raiding Cracklaw Point, and therefore, like the stories got mixed up, and so everyone's like, oh, they're we're getting attacked by um by sea creatures, and it was actually just sistermen, you know. Um, but of course, you're supposed to be thinking about the others the entire time. Um, Would the sistermen ever rebel? Aren't there like 12 people on the island? I mean, I think they're going to have a big part to play. Moving on, I think that they are big. I mean, they are big Blackfire supporters, and so if you're talking about like the sistermen doing really well at Sweet Robin's tourney, which I guarantee they will. Like, there's three of them. They've been wasting all of their money on destriers. That's I can't take that. They've been wasting all their money on destriers and practicing. Like, they're gonna get spots in Sweet Robin's Kingsguard, and so Sweet Robin's gonna be surrounded by sistermen, and so they're gonna have power over him. And then if they end up being Blackfires and end up supporting Aegon, that's a big deal. Either in the sense that it puts Sweet Robin in a dangerous situation, or it makes Sweet Robin's army like side with Aegon. But the sistermen are incredibly relevant. Like, I think that there's a reason we had Davos 1 to introduce the sisters. There's a reason we heard about those three brothers training to be knights. There's a reason they've shown up at the Sweet Robin's tournament to be part of his Kingsguard. It's definitely leading somewhere, and they keep going into the fact that the sistermen were Blackfires. Of all of the people, like this tiny little island with 12 people, why is it important that they're Blackfires? Well, it's important because they're going to be really well placed and really well placed around Sweet Robin. What do you think Asha will contribute to the plot going forward, considering she's still in the north? Well, let's figure out. Let's put Asha on the map here, because she's important. So, Asha has essentially declared herself for Stannis, though this is, it's Asha, so it doesn't really mean much. She's looking for any opportunity to betray anyone and take power. Um, but like I say, she's been talking to Tris Botley. I think Tris Botley is going to know about the Glover situation. She has power in the sense that she's got the Glover hostages. Okay, the Glover hostages are on Harlaw. That's her family's, her mother's house. Like she's got that. It's in fact it's the only thing she has, is that she has power over over them. Because even the people, even when we talk about Dagmar Cleftjaw or Wex and like what they want, they care about Theon. They don't really care about Asha. They care about Theon. And so Asha's bargaining chip are the Glover hostages, though she didn't really like mention it much. But I think she, of course, is looking to grab Theon at some point, go back to the Iron Isles, and negate the Kingsmoot because Theon was not part of it and he was supposed to be. So, I mean, that's definitely a place I see, going. Now the question is, will she linger in the north, or will she somehow give the Glover hostages back and be able to escape? If we're going by the show, I guess she needs to somehow escape, and negate or escape in a loose term, but the she needs to get out and go back to the Iron Isles to negate to do the Kingsmoot thing. We just had such a setup with that, with her in the Tris Botley chapter, with her having sex with Tris Bot. I mean, not she was having sex with Carl the Maid. Her and Carl the Maid, like that had like there was just such a setup on that history. So she somehow has to trade these Glover hostages for Theon, and her safety to get away. Maybe maybe it'll end up somewhat like in the show, but I know. I mean, please don't go by the show. Sure, but there's just definitely some things that happen in the show where you kind of see how it could happen in the book the same way. And so it's hard not to like use that as a crutch, because we know that we had a whole chapter of her thinking about how like what to do on the Iron Isles. Like, and we have the solution. We have the solution with Theon. Theon missed the Kingsmoot. If he's out, he was a legitimate claimant. How can you not have Theon at a Kingsmoot? If she brings him back to the Iron Isles and has a redo, you'd think that would be something that she'd want. Yes, she is a hostage herself. Stannis has her. There's it, but she still does have those Glover hostages, and so it depends, like if he needs the Glovers. Now the Glovers are kind of, I imagine, a handful of Glovers went with Stannis. But we don't hear about any Glovers with Stannis, and we don't hear about any Glovers with Roose or Ramsay. So there may just not be that many Glovers left. But we know that Robert Glover still exists, and he's up to something. Now, some people think that maybe he is the Hooded Man. In Winterfell, Theon, this Hooded Man arrives at Winterfell and is able to walk in and go into the hall, and we aren't sure exactly like why someone would be let in, considering that like if he's outside and he's hostile to Stannis's army or Mor's Umber's army, he wouldn't make it to the front door. And if he made it to the front door, why would Roose's army let him in? And like the idea is that the only person that would be seen non-hostile to both sides would be someone like Robert Glover or Howland Reed. If you really want to go on that, like it would have to be a non-hostile, like declared northern house, right? Some people say Hallis Malin, but or something like that. But yeah. How the hell is Dagmar staying supplied? I think I think if you're just like on the ocean, you can just fish. You just keep fishing forever. I think that's how they're dealing with it. I mean, you're right that they should be able to cut off this river here. Um, that it's real that it seems pretty easy to just cut off Torrens Square by taking over this river area and and closing it off. Like Torrens Square is not actually a very well positioned uh, city, right? I mean, also the way they talk about these castles, they talk about them like, oh, we have enough food for like 2 years and stuff. I suppose it's not unrealistic. Like when I visited Crusader forts in the Middle East, they often were holed up in there for years. So I don't know how they did it, how they did that. Um, I talked about Howland. Any thoughts on the identity of Gianna Reed? She just appears in a appendix. We have no idea like who she is. Um, so it's kind of weird. I mean, if Mira is around the same age as Rob and John, you'd think that he somehow had sex with her during the war. So it could be anybody that he met along the way, or maybe his wife visited him on the front. That would seem a little weird, but um, it's a little odd. But that is if Mira is around the same age as Rob and John, like war babies, and Howland is actually in the war the entire time, which we also don't know. We know that Howland is in the war at the end, but we don't know what he was doing kind of before that. So the did you go to Carrick? Yeah, I've been to Carrick a few times, you know, but Carrick is a Crusader castle in Jordan. But yeah, I've been to the Crusader castles of almost all of them in Jordan and a few in Syria um, as well. The ones in Syria are actually much more impressive than the ones in Jordan. The ones in Jordan are kind of dinky. They're dinky and cute, but the ones in Syria are just out of a dream, out of a dream. Um, Now this is the question. Rickon arriving on a unicorn with an army of Skagosi. Um, it's very possible that they're going to bring some Skagosi, and Davos, like I say, like he disappears in the middle of of A Dance with Dragons. Um, in fact, let's go in the chapter list here. Okay. Bring this over. Let's see if I can change this view a little. Let's go. Here we go. Let's go over here. Davos 4 is the 29th chapter of A Dance with Dragons. Dance with Dragons has 73 chapters. So that you think about how early that is. That's in the first third of the book. We've got it. Let's put this chat back. How am I not getting my Chrome? Where am I getting my chat back? Come on, chat. You can? There we go. So Davos in the first third of the chapter is, he's in White Harbor, and then he leaves, and we got to think, okay, how long is that going to take? Because he's by sea, so it's pretty fast, maybe a week or something, maybe 2 weeks, and then he's there. He has his adventures, and then he's back. When we start thinking about things like Tycho Nestoris' trip, from the wall to Winterfell, which he does. Well, actually, it's from the wall to Deepwood Motte to Winterfell. You know that trip has to take at least a month. You know, and that happens. You know, kind of in the middle. I think it's John 7 and 8 is when Tychonosaurus is there, and then he arrives. You know, near the end. So he definitely has enough time. Davos definitely has enough time to pick up an army. I don't know if he has ships, but he definitely has enough time to get there and back with Rickon. The question is, you know, okay, does the Winterfell can the Manderley fleet come up, pick up some Skagosi, and go all the way back? Yeah, probably has enough time to do that too. You know, um, so we have no idea what Davos is doing there or what the situation on Skalagos is, but it'd be interesting if he was on a unicorn. Um, Jonathan going to Winterfell goes to Hardhome with Tormund, where he meets Davos, who brought ships to help after hearing of it on Skagos. Um, well, that's certainly in a geography sense that makes a lot more sense. So Hardhome is here, which isn't very far at all. When you start thinking about wall geography, you start thinking about things being way off, right? But really, like when you think like, okay, this was Jon's journey in a Game of Thrones, as he went from Winterfell all the way to the Wall. Okay, that was like a 3-week journey, and then this is Jon's journey in a Clash of Kings into the Frostfangs and back, right? So his Clash of Kings journey, actually, he goes into the Frostfangs in Clash of Kings, and then he comes back out in a Storm of Swords. So his walking distance in those books is much less than what he actually even does in a Game of Thrones. You know, so these are actually kind of small distances north of the Wall. So it doesn't actually take very long to get to Hardhome. Hardhome is maybe, you know, you could say a week, maybe with bad weather, 2 weeks. So it's and so you're right that in a geography sense, boop, he could help things pretty easily. But will he? Who knows? Who knows? Would he know about it? How would he hear about it? Maybe maybe the Skagosi watch and there's stuff going on with the trade. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Um, the three flints. The three flints are funny because no one really talks about them too much because we don't really know much. Um, let's see. That's what we're talking about. The three flints. Let's mark them up here. Um, we don't, we don't actually have their sigils. We have this. I think this might even be an unofficial one, but let's see. We got Widow's Watch, and then we got the flints of the hill up here, and then we got the flints of the finger down here. Yeah. So, I mean, they've appeared at Winterfell, and we know some flints are with Stannis too. So we've got flints on both sides, but then there's the question of how much do these three flints, like how much do they have? How much unity is there between the flints? We know that a flint, I think, disappears in the middle of Stannis's march with a donkey. And so we kind of have this sense that the flints are up to something interesting. Like maybe they are actually communicating with the other flints. But it's hard to say. Yeah, here we go. It says Morgan Little's mule had gone astray, and they claim that one of the Flints had stolen him. So at some point during Stannis's march, a Flint disappears with a donkey. Now, maybe one of the Flints is actually the hooded man. He disappeared and then he arrived, and then maybe he wants to communicate with the other Flints. And because he has a flint, maybe the flint of the fingers and the flint of the mountains have the same sigil or a similar sigil, that they just kind of like let him into Winterfell. Um, yeah, the this is funny. Don't stop until the whole map is littered with sigils and portraits. Yes, so it's certainly possible that that's one of the situations going on. Or one could say, well, the Flint sigil is not that different from the Glover sigil. Maybe there could be some confusion, but yeah, we don't really know what's going on now. Widow's Watch. These guys are apparently big spies that watch ships going by. So certainly, when Davos went whoop to Skagos, yeah, they knew. They definitely knew. In fact, I think they talk about I think Manderley talks about the Flints having a spy in his chapter. I gotta look that one up again. A lot of this I'm like remembering from my Northern Conspiracy videos way back in the day. um Transport sales from Little Sister, or yeah, he said oh, it was the Davos chapters, but the people that spied the Widow's Watch and had connections with where it was actually um the Sistermen. So the Sistermen had connections and said, "Oh, we spied your ship activity from Widow's Watch." So these guys definitely like know everything. I mean, their sigil are freaking eyes on the ocean. I mean, they're gonna they're gonna know. Um, so the problem with this theory is that with Davos being the hooded man, is why would they let him in the castle? So it has to be somebody that's neutral. Um, that that the um, what's the deal with the little? So I think what you're referring to is the fact that the we don't know where all of the littles are. So for those that don't know, the littles are a hill clan, and then um, Bran runs into the littles in his trip up, and then um, but they refer to each of the littles as like big little, little little, and things like that. So um, let's see. There's Torin Little, who's the head. Then Big Little is a ranger in the Night's Watch. Morgan Little, which I imagine would be his second son, and Little, his third son. Um, so so they Bran runs into the Littles, so they definitely know that Bran is alive, which is a pretty big deal. So the Littles could communicate and leak to everyone that Bran and Rickon, well, not maybe not Rickon, I don't know if they talked about it, but at least Bran is alive, and that fake Arya has no claim. Um, the Now Middle Little, it joins Stannis, and so he would be the heir. So because considering that Duncan Little would be disinherited. Um, 100 Rory Big Little. Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, that's pretty interesting that the eldest little would have given up his claim and joined the Night's Watch. That's really really weird, and it's really really weird that the littles have run into Bran and at least kept it somewhat a secret that the that Bran is alive. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. Um, it is certainly weird that the eldest would join the Night's Watch like that, but um, yeah, it's hard to say what they're up to and why they would complain. I mean, they're the ones that complained about the Flint stealing their mule and taking off. So you'd think if they were secretive, they wouldn't have talked about that mule. But it's it's an odd one. Like at some point, like did George R. R. Martin think about it? Um, do the Littles know Arya? They'd probably be one of the few mountain clans that wouldn't. So Arya was brought along to a few of the cities to meet the lords. Certainly Manderley knows what Arya looks like because Arya has met. Arya mentions in one of her chapters that she's been to White Harbor. Um, I mean, she didn't travel as much as Theon did. Like Theon went everywhere with Ned, but and I don't think Arya was ever brought up to the Littles, but the so they wouldn't necessarily know what she looks like, but certainly Manderley knows what Arya looks like, and in Winterfell would know that Arya would be a fake. Of course, Arya being a fake is it's it's not exactly a well kept secret. Like Jamie looks at Arya, having met her briefly once, and immediately figures out it's not Arya. And it's not like Jamie is the smartest guy in the world. Like Jane Westerling's the wrong age. She's the wrong age by a couple years. She doesn't look. So it's like all you got to do is meet Arya once and kind of and figure out like her right age. And one of these lords, like Stannis knows every house in the Seven Kingdoms and who is who the background of everybody. I'm not saying every lord is going to be like that, but at least one lord is going to be like that. At least one lord at Winterfell is going to look and be like, "Yeah, that's definitely not Arya." It's just that no one cares, or they're all just in on the lie. Like at this point, there's a power structure. No one's going to say like that's not Arya. Um, so I do, yeah, but I don't believe this. I have a whole video on this, but I don't think that Big Walder killed Little Walder. That would just be silly. That would be silly. Like he's Big Walder's little. He's little, and he has no real motive. Um, you know, did I did I say Westerling? Did I say Jane Westerling? Wouldn't that be quite a fake out? We find out that Jane Poole and Jane Westerling are the same person the whole time. The whole time. Oh man. Oh man. Um, this is the question: is Jamie secretly smart? Um, I don't know. I mean, he has a few things that he's thought about that we don't know if they're right or not. Like, for instance, he thinks that Tyrek Lannister is still alive and was kidnapped by Varys, which he comes with that out of nowhere. And if he's right about that, it's like, wow, that's freaking genius, Or the fact that he figured out that Joffrey like did the dagger. Like, if Joffrey actually did the dagger, I mean, that's pretty genius considering none of it actually makes any sense. Um, could Walder be in the little Walder be in on the Northern Conspiracy? Uh, so the knowledge that little Walder's kind of an idiot. He's certainly around Ramsay a lot, so he'd know about Ramsay's plotting, but people are specifically trying to keep information away from Ramsay. So you certainly wouldn't want little Walder to find out about it. Now, Um, could he be a spy for somebody? I don't know. Keep in mind that the Freys have every reason to want Roose Bolton to be in power. There is, Roose is married to Fat Walda, and um, which means they would get the Dreadfort and have a place to, many Freys would have a place to live. And then, not to mention, there's a whole bunch of, a couple Freys that are trying to marry into House Manderley. And so it's in the Frey's best interest to back Roose 100%. It's not in their best interest to back Ramsay because Ramsay claims the Dreadfort, and um, that's in direct opposition to Fat Walda and her family's claims. The entire reason that the Frey army is up there is because of their claims on White Harbor and um, the Dreadfort. Like, and so, the Northern Conspiracy, which would be about getting rid of Roose, Ramsay, or both, would be against that. So I can't see why any Frey would ever support a Northern Conspiracy. And let's keep in mind that Little Walder is a Crakehall Frey. Like, Fat Walda is his sister. So, it's there'd be no reason for Little Walder to conspire against his sister like that. It's actually when you start rethinking the horrible scene where, Little Walder is brought in, butchered, like, and Fat Walda is there to see her own brother, her own little brother. It's pretty sad when you think about it from Fat Walda's perspective of what happened. It's pretty horrible. Third times. What's this all about? Sweet Robin, Sweet Robin, Sweet Robin. Um, it's just we're talking about the North right here. We're talking about the North, so this is the whole thing. But if we're talking about, but quickly, dark stories. Besides Meat House Man, a pear-shaped man is pretty damn dark. I mean, we're talking a woman getting her consciousness taken over by a fat old man, a fat man, and having her getting sucked into a living hell of having her consciousness being blended with his. It's pretty damn dark. Pear-shaped man. Um, Final scene of Aesop should be everybody ripping off disguises. That'd be funny. Is like they're all at the final, the small council, and then they rip off their faces and they're all Jock and Hagars. You know, you know. Why Taipei, not Taiwan? So Taipei. So I've been getting this a bit from every once in a while. Taipei is the capital of Taiwan, or I mean, they call it Taipei, which has to do with Romanization. The bay in Taipei, is actually the same bay as in Beijing. It means north. So in China, Beijing means north capital. In Taipei, Tai is kind of like platform, but it's it's like the northern part of Taiwan. So they, people now there's this idea that when Taiwan is led into, or if they're rarely led into international organizations, but if they are, they sometimes have to take the name Chinese Taipei. And so some people think that using Taipei instead of Taiwan is something, but it's no, it's just Taipei is the capital city where we're living. It's Taipei, Taiwan. Um, let's see. Won't John let go of Winterfell if Jane shows up? This is the real question. So let's get our let's see. We've got to figure. Let's place John on the map because we can. All right, John. Do I have the real? I only have this version of John with his. So good old dead John is at the wall. Last time we checked, though, we don't really know how aligned Stannis' story is with the John story. I did a long analysis called "The Timing of the Stab," where one could argue that John's story is actually a full month behind Stannis' story, despite the letter claiming that Stannis is dead, making everybody think that John's story is ahead of the Stannis story. Author error and everything. I mean, this is really obscure stuff when I went into the phases of the moon to determine like when these things are happening and the number of days. Like, was our author paying attention? I don't know. I don't know if our author was paying attention. But the idea, whatever the case, it could be either way. Like either story could be ahead of the other. I would say that it's at this point we just don't know. So we got Jane Poole. Come on. Oh. Good old Jane Poole is currently on her way. She's not very far from the battle at all. She's like a few hours, okay? A few hours north of the battle, heading north with Justin Massey, Mormont, Tychonosaurus. They're heading back to the wall. So John currently dead, but let's say John comes back to life like he does in the book, or does in the show, and Jane Westerling gets there, and John's still sticking around. And they say, "Oh, Arya's here," and he sees Jane. What would be his reaction? Because the entire time he was about to go south to try to save her, and now she's arrived, and it's not even her. So now he's kind of without a reason to go to Winterfell. So at this point, people saying, "Oh, well, he could go to Hardhome at this point because now Jane Westerling's here." Of course, if he waits for Jane Westerling to get to the wall, the people at Hardhome are long dead. I mean, that would be like, because this is like a month, right? It would take her a month to get here. By then, everyone at Hardhome's dead, so there'd be no point. So, but it's probably enough time though for John to go to Hardhome and back, if he chooses to do the Hardhome thing. So Jane Westerling arrives, and he says, "Oh man, I guess there was no reason for me to attack South anyway. I guess he'd just be really confused." Now, I imagine that he would have no reason to really charge south, but the wildlings are still like, "Oh crap, what about Mance?" But you'd think that they wouldn't wait around as well. They would have been off to go get Mance, to rescue Mance. So it's a very weird situation when you start thinking about it. In fact, we got to put Tormund on here. Like, could Tormund and Jane Westerling, because say John's dead, but Tormund, they get in this big, well, I mean, if Tormund's not burned up in the shield hall or whatever with everybody, because they're all packed in the shield hall right now, which is a fire hazard. So they could all die in the maybe they'd get out. I don't know, but they could march down. They could actually run into, if they both took the King's Road, they'd run into each other at some point, like Justin Massey and Jane Poole and Mormont. They'd run into this wildling army at some point. Maybe they'd just get slaughtered. Who knows? Or maybe they'd get rescued. I don't know. But if Jane Poole made it all the way, yeah, John would have no reason to invade South anymore because there'd be no Arya. And I mean, I don't know how well John cared about Jane Poole. I mean, he knew Jane Poole certainly. Would he care about her? I don't know. That's kind of funny. Kind of funny to think about, actually. Like, what happens when you're ready to go die, break your oath to save somebody, um, but not some acquaintance that you had. Um, am I calling her Westerling? Yeah, Jane Westerling. This is good old Jane Westerling is gonna. That's the thing is like when John meets Jane Westerling, they're both gonna be. I mean, is Jane Westerling gonna be dead? Is Jane West? People think Jane Westerling's gonna die in the prologue, so maybe she'll be back from the dead, and then her and John will have something in common, and then they can marry each other. Yeah. So, so um, could they sacrifice Jane at the wall before John comes back, thinking she's Arya? Uh, yeah, I imagine. I mean, if they consider Rob a king and therefore the sister of Rob would have king's blood, I think these zealots would be looking for any and all reasons to burn people. They're looking, they're pretty they're searching for reasons to uh to kill people really at this point. So I think that's completely possible. That now the wildlings aren't necessarily, not all of them at least, near just a few are followers of R'hllor. So the wildlings wouldn't necessarily need to burn her, but maybe they could give her to a heart tree. I don't know, but then it's not king's blood so much. Um, Maybe they save fake Arya, win Winterfell, and marry her. I'm trying to think like now, at least on the Stannis end, he really thought that Val was going to be his Winterfell princess, that he was going to install in Winterfell in order to get the wildlings support. Now, John personally thinks that won't work, but this is Stannis's plan, at least. That the Lord, whoever makes Lord of Winterfell, he makes Val the Princess of Winterfell, and that's going to get the wildlings on board, and then he's going to have this wildling army. Um, who knows? All the thousands that are following the Weeper are the ones that are really need to be convinced. So you need to start establishing like diplomatic ties with the Weeper and see if they would follow Val, which doesn't even seem likely. She's more connected to Tormund. So we'll see. We'll see. It's at this point it's getting so chaotic that I almost feel like George's only answer is to have everybody get just slaughtered off by either an invasion of the Weeper or an invasion of the others, just to kill everybody, because it's getting so complicated with these relations. But right now, we'll put Tormund back up at the wall with John, and we'll take Jane. We'll put her back down just a little north of Stannis. Um, but yeah, we should probably do put some more. Um, do I have Roose? Roose at Winterfell. Hope you can all hear my toddler talking in the background. Um, I think Val and Dala could be from Skagos. It would explain his journey to the Winterfell feast and back. Um, it's a little out of the way for him. I mean, he already went out of the way to kind of cross the wall at a certain place. I think he crosses it at Longbarrow, maybe. We have to look at the map. But that's the thing about like Mance's ridiculous like journey, like going all the way to Winterfell and back. This like multi-month journey to go to just get a look at somebody. Now, I mean, either he's lying about the whole trip, which is possible, or he went down there to do something chaotic. I think killing. I really think it would be a much better story. It just makes more sense that Mance was like tried to sent the cat's paw and tried to kill Bran because it plays into his hands so well. He's doing a mercy, which is more in wildling culture, but we'll see. Um, but you're supposed to steal people from far away. So I do wonder if Dala, like some people think that Dala and Val were Umbers, and that they were stolen on the other side of the wall, and then that they're going to be part of the negotiation between everybody. That we have this like very complicated web of negotiation where you've got Umber's missing a daughter, and then we have this weird thing where people talk about Tormund being the husband of bears and whether or not that relates to the Mormonts. And then, the Ironborn and the Glovers and them wanting Rickon back from Skagos. And then Theon knowing about the Dreadfort and Dagmar being at Torrent Square. And you get this very complicated web of interconnectability between everybody. And so people do wonder, like, is Val or Dala an Umber? Because the Umbers do talk about this kidnapped daughter. Let me look this up real quick. It says that the daughter of Mor's Umber was carried off in a wildling raid. And this is mentioned in John 4, A Dance with Dragons. And so, here it is. When Mors was young, he was a fearsome fighter. His sons died on the Trident, his wife in the childbed. His only daughter was carried off by wildlings 30 years ago. So, you could even think about it in the sense that if people know that Val, for example, let's say it's Val, that the entire reason that Stannis wants to install Val as Princess of Winterfell, when keep in mind, Jon tells Stannis repeatedly, like, she's not a wildling princess, that doesn't help you. And Stannis says, I know that, and he keeps saying, I know that. So let's think of Val not as a wildling, but we start thinking of her as an Umber. With Stannis saying, I'm going to give Winterfell to the Umbers, to the Umber daughter, Val, if she's an Umber. Then you'd get the Umbers. With the Umbers, you get the Manderleys because they've been working on the fleet together and all of this, So that would be very, very interesting kind of situation. Now, I don't know if Val is older than 30. Because Jon seems to be romantically interested in Val. I don't know if he would consider that if she were, in her early 30s versus her 20s or teens. But because everybody's so into her. So maybe it's Dala. Maybe Dala was an Umber. But then we're talking about that wildling prince being the only Umber, the Umber heir, maybe. So yeah. This is the question. Maybe Dal and Val's mother was the Umber daughter, but they're still Umbers, in the Umber line. And so you're really trying to get the Umbers in there? No. Okay. Hold on a second. We're going to have a little visitor.
He's drinking.
I was thinking something. Yeah. Hey, what's going on?
Some computer.
What?
This is some computers.
Yes, this is a computer. Yes, and if you touch all of my keyboards, it'll ruin everything. And then, but yeah,
The bugs can come too.
who can come?
The bugs.
The bus? The bugs? The bugs are coming? What?
The bug not coming.
The bugs are not coming. Yeah.
Play.
What do you want? You want to play on my computer, but you're gonna mess everything up.
The penguin.
What penguin?
The penguin one.
Where's a penguin?
The penguin one.
I don't see any penguin.
The penguin ones.
What? What penguin?
Well, it's falling down.
What's falling down?
The picture I got up.
Oh yeah, you're right. All of these little pictures are going up. Yeah, those are people sending messages. They're saying, "Oh, henkai, henkai." Because Happy New Year, Happy Chinese New Year, Happy
New Year.
I wear new clothes. I eat yummy food. I play fun games. I get lucky money. Maybe he saw the penguin. Like he loves the penguin. He loves the penguins. I'm surprised Carmine told me he was going to call in. I know you all love when Carmine joins. Where's Carmine? I'm gonna message him here. All right, let's see here. This is actually not much of a thing anymore, by the way. Like, maybe like when I was first here 20 years ago, but like the younger generation has kind of gotten over this. It's all Taiwan. The oops, Carmine's eating Taco Bell. From Jane Poole's torture to pure wholesomeness. He's not that wholesome. He's covered in poo most of the time. I don't know how wholesome that is. That was Carmine in my lap. Maybe they're similar. They're a similar height from what Carmine tells me. Carmine likes all sorts of fast food. It's not just, but yeah, he actually he likes his um I'm trying to think like the thing that he most is eating when I call him. I think it's calzones. I think he eats calzones the most. Let's see here if I can get him to uh yes, I know. What happened? What happened? Dead John equals glamour torment. So the that would be very very interesting. The I was because I was doing time traveling brand kind of stuff. I was looking at Brand's first vision, and it shows like John has a vision. Brand has a vision of John, and he's getting cold and pale in a room alone, and his skin is getting hard, and he's becoming cold. Um, and this usually refers to like every time John has a crypt dream, he gets cold. So it might just be that, but then there's also the question of is this referring to John's dead body if it gets brought inside into a room? Is he getting cold because he's actually dead? Um, so if you had Tormund glamored the entire time, and Bran's vision is actually of Tormund the entire time, um, how much that changes things. But no, uh, I think they're kind of connected, and I'll talk about this in my time traveling Bran. But just that the when John has visions of Bran, when John has visions, he thinks of Bran, and when Bran has visions, he thinks of John. So they're kind of connected. So unless Tormund starts talking about having visions of crypts or something, um, you know, uh, I can't buy a Tormund being dead John. Though that'd be an interesting switch. I guess they had time. They had time. They had time. But they'd have to switch clothes and they'd get Melisandre involved. you know, then Tormund would be dead. I bring this up a lot, like, not Tormund, but like the thought of like, could it be possible if to keep John dead, and like, would that be all right? Like, is there any vision or plot thread or anything that requires John to be alive? Like, has any? I mean, one could think that like maybe Daenerys is like being in love with a third person or whatever thing like needs John. But I don't even know if that is specific enough that you could possibly pop in anybody. I'm trying to think if there's any vision that involves John that hasn't happened yet that needs him, that facilitates him being alive, or if we could actually just keep him dead for the rest of the book to free up some space. Oh gosh. So this is it, eh? Glamored himself and was the one who died. Made some good points about the character in the chapter wants a horn. Let me. I mean, it's intriguing idea here. Let me see here. He wants a horn? Oh, I see. A horn. So John wants a horn. And it's Giantsbane that had the horn. But that's the thing is Tormund has a horn. Like, shouldn't... And then he wants a horn of ale. Where's the true horn? He wants a... I suppose earlier in the chapter, Tormund wants to know where the real horn of Jormungand is. But John is asking for a horn, and Tormund already has a horn. The other big thing is we're actually inside John's head, right? Like, we know it's John. Like, John 13 is from John's perspective, and he sees Tormund somewhere else from his perspective. Like, had the chapter been called like the Lord Commander or something, and not John 13, it would be, maybe I'd buy it. Like that you've all of a sudden like changed the name of the chapter and it's mysterious who it is. But it's called John. Like, John's stabbed in John's chapter from John's point of view. Like, it'd be really hard to be Tormund. Yeah. No, I think it's not, John doesn't have a horn. I think it's the guy next to him has a horn, right? I mean, he is forgetful because I'm trying to, because John goes out there with two people, and I think one of them, because earlier he gets people's attention by just asking his companion to blow a horn to get everyone's attention. And that same companion is next to him. But I'm trying to remember if it's Rory. So Rory is the character who carries a horn. Tormund also has his own horn on him. So Rory I was about to say Jory, and I was like, Jory's dead. But Rory has a horn, and Rory goes with is one of the two people by John's side. So it is weird that in his strength in his chapter he's like a horn. I need a horn, and Rory is standing right next to him. He could have just said, Rory, blow your horn, like he did back in John 3, but he doesn't do it. John 5. John 5. So he could have told Rory to blow his horn. Instead, he sits there. He thinks like an idiot. I need a horn when he should have been like. But John is probably drunk. Yeah. John was definitely drunk. So, um, was it all a dream? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, anything's possible. Yeah, one of his bodyguards. Yeah. Um, kind of different situations with Ukraine and Taiwan, but but prayers for everybody. Prayers for everybody. Oh man. Um, the thing is, John got to be semi rotten when he comes back to life. I mean, all of the all zombie reanimation is one of the stupidest ideas like in the world. Like if you, like the minute you die, within seconds, you're talking like degradation of your body. Like it's just there's no way that like a zombie could ever be animated. There's no you're gone, you're done. Um, but that said, we've got Beric Dondarrion and we have Lady Stoneheart and we have maybe the Mountain. All right, let me. All right, hello, hello, Carmine. It says you're muted. I'm going to add you. Are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yeah. All right, we got it working.
Let's see if it. Hopefully, it doesn't freeze this time. Hopefully, I fixed that. NYZ made a good point, by the way, about the Tormund being John, supposedly. He
Yeah.
said, but the names of the chapters are the people, or who the people pretend to be, like Sansa's chapter in the Vale. They're
Yeah.
Elaine.
Mm. Yes. Right. Um, right. But I'm trying to think of a situation where the real person's name is put on, like uh, like even when people are pretending, like do they choose somebody um, else's name? Like I'm thinking of like anytime. I mean, all of Arya's chapters use a code. Um, and then I'm trying to think anybody else who does like pretending besides Elaine. The Merchant's Man, Quentin is pretending, is taking on identities. But it's interesting to take on the identity of someone that we already know. Um, that would be odd. But but I mean, doesn't he think about in his point of view, like, okay, say John 13 were Tormund the whole time, or anybody else. It doesn't even have to be Tormund. Um, like we've got thoughts that, for instance, the giant was dangling a bloody corpse by one leg the same way Arya used to dangle her doll when she was small. Like Tormund would have no memory of what Arya was like when she was a child, right? So you've got all these personal thoughts of John, that Tormund would have no, or anyone else would have no access, would have no memory of. Like if it were another person that lived at Winterfell, maybe that knew Arya, but you can't you have personal thoughts of John. Yeah.
I'm not
Um.
defending the theory. I'm just pointing out that
Yeah.
NYZ made a good point. That's it.
so, so everybody wants to know what were you eating for dinner? The world wants to know.
I had miso soup. By the way, I have Taco Bell one fucking time. All of a sudden, I have it all the time now. Like, really? No,
Oh,
I had miso soup. The roommate made it, and I tried it. It was not bad. It was alright.
yeah, yeah. Interesting thing. Okay, John 14 is the book of the Bible in which Jesus tells his disciples not to be sad about his death because he will return to them. Um, I mean, that's interesting. Though I think the chapter numbering system was kind of just developed by fans like Brand Voss or maybe Elio and Linda when they put stuff on their wiki. I don't know who was first, but I started mimicking the method that Brand Voss started using, which and I think it's similar to, but I don't know if that's just what was on the wiki too, from Elio and Linda. So I don't know if George like cares about the numbering as much as fans do. But it's a good coincidence though that John 14 is a return of JC. You know. So what's been happening with you? It's Carmine.
I'm surprised you haven't started the political discussions yet. People
I
have been
mean,
goading you into it.
well, what politics do we want to talk? What spicy politics do we want to talk about today? So we said every time a king or lord says they are safe with their army, they get stabby time. That's true. That's true. It's just what happens. Like how books work is you establish something one way and then you have your expectations subverted, and so they do it the other way. Um, I don't know what politics are happening in Kansas.
I have no idea. By the way, I haven't had calzone in over 2 years since I've been here. Like this,
Really? Because there
bro,
aren't
the
any good
food out here.
calzone.
Please, the food out here in the Midwest is fucking trash. Holy shit, it's trash. It is so bad. I need to get back to like Jersey or New York. Why am I such a fascist? Because I just am. I need to get back to New York and New Jersey because oh god, the food out here is so bad, so bad.
um, so somebody asks like they're in their gluten free are thinking about having kids in the next few years,
Gluten free. I love that.
um, but are concerned about the state of the world when they grow up, China, climate change, etc. What do you think as a newish dad? Um, I'm very concerned about the state of the world and the future for my kid. I mean, especially him being an American and how fucked up America is, and how fucked up it's grown. But the only thing you can say is, well, you know, if you have a good head on your shoulders and you can produce a child that has a good head on their shoulders, maybe they can fix things. Because all the people with bad heads on their shoulders are having 12 kids, and so we're kind of um, what's the movie Carmine that I'm thinking of where Idiocracy, yeah. So in
Where
some
the idiots
sense,
take over the world and the new guy is like the
yeah,
smartest guy.
but the the
Yeah.
pri- the primary reason was all the smart people chose to have no kids, and the dumb people had lots. But the even Idiocracy though is like better than our world, because in Idiocracy, like all the idiots deferred to the smart people in the end and were like, oh no, that seems like a really good idea. You're really smart, rather than like American system today where everybody's like, let's everybody thinks they're like Joe Rogan is the freaking person to connect with and to question all scientists, and it's rough. It's rough. Yeah. Oh, maybe I'll leave these guys around. They're fun. Speaking of spicy things, have you ever tried Chengdu hot pot? Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I had hot pot plenty in China and other places, but like the Taiwanese like are just especially nuts for hot pot. Like just especially nuts. Like every other restaurant is a freaking hot pot place, and they're all packed constantly. And I'm like, guys, like kids, like let's have some other restaurants. Like like there's not that there's not one or two Mexican places in the city, but there's only like one or two. Or like Ethiopia. I don't think there's an Ethiopian place in the city, or at least not anymore. Just stuff like that, where like from DC, I'm like, why can't you have a good Ethiopian place? But the they are afraid of Joe Rogan. So um Joe Rogan, um keep in mind that people stand for him because they think he's cool. Like he's a big manly guy. And he's like, oh, he seems like a guy I want to be like, man. The chicks must dig him. He's big and muscular and he seems cool. I want to stand. And so the minute he says something, people want to like mimic it because like they want to be like Joe Rogan. Um, that's what he's selling. Like there's no Joe Rogan doesn't have any good ideas. He's a fucking idiot. But the fact that like he's now making a living like putting out vaccine misinformation constantly. Oh my god. You used to love Joe Rogan, Carmine.
So I was dreading you bringing this up, but let me actually defend this. So I used to be a huge fan of the Howard Stern show. But even when I was a fan of the Stern Show, no one watches or listens to the Howard Stern Show for Howard Stern. He's the least interesting thing about the show.
Yeah.
Everybody listened for Artie, Gary, Sal, Richard, Ronnie,
Mhm.
Whack Pack.
Yeah,
Same with
yeah.
Joe Rogan. I don't listen to Joe Rogan for Joe Rogan. It's like Mr. That Guy Am said. It's because of his guests. He has
Yeah.
incredibly interesting guests. He had on one guy you would like, Sebastian Junger, who went into
Mhm.
detail about his life in Tibet, or the HBO QAnon documentary director. He had that guy on recently.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is super interesting.
But
Not the fact
but recently he's been having all these anti-vax sycophants though. Like I mean,
I don't
people criticized him because so Joe Rogan's whole interview style is yeah, no, totally, yeah, no, totally, yeah, and so he'd have on some left wingers and he'd have on some right wingers, but he'd tend to have on more right wingers, and he would just sit there and going yeah, totally, while they spewed just like the craziest garbage. And now he's actually like taking this weird fucking anti-vax stand, and he has on these fucking like snake oil salesmen, like weirdo doctor people that are trying to all sell their remedies. It's getting dangerous because it's not like it's a big deal when you tell people not to fucking get vaccinated. Like that's really fucking dangerous.
Well, do you also need to tell people not to, touch a hot stove? Like once again,
Hmm.
if you're taking medical advice from an entertainer or just two dudes on a live stream talking about Sex in the City or whatever the fuck we talk about, like there's something wrong with you. If you have any medical
Hmm.
questions, go to your doctor and someone
I
actually trained in this.
look, I know, but he's got an audience of millions, and I mean, Aaron Rodgers said that he listened to Joe Rogan, and that's how he got his ideas. You know, and so like people do it. Like I'm not saying it's not like absolute idiocy to look to a stand up comedian who became a podcaster for your medical advice, but people do it. People do it. Um, so it's pretty sad.
Something happened to him. Like he used to
Oh yeah,
be super. He used to have like amazing. I was just listening to the Graham Hancock one where he talks about like all this like cool archaeological stuff, and now it's just he has on like these random snake oil salesmen, like you said, and
yeah.
it's not fun. And he also has on a lot of these like shitty small comedians I don't give a fuck about. I
Mm.
miss like the David Show interviews. Like I dare you to sit there and listen to his podcast with Joey Diaz and not laugh. Like those
Yeah,
were
no, and
hilarious.
he's also like he's not as fast as he used to be. Like Joe Rogan, I thought he was a really great stand up comedian who had some really funny stuff. And then he kind of slowed down a bit, and just kind of became this. No, we're all chilling, we're having a conversation, kind of stuff. And it was I think it worked when he had interesting guests. And then he started having, he wanted more and more controversial guests. And when you have more and more controversial guests, they say controversial things, you know, like he has on like weirdos like Elon Musk, who is a fucking moron, or Alex Jones, who's a fucking moron, who say like weird shit, who have, like when Elon Musk says something, like it affects the stock market, which it shouldn't, because he's a fucking idiot, But but what are you gonna do? I don't know. It's yeah, yeah. But it's rough. It's rough when it's like a serious medical situation where we're trying to get everybody fucking vaccinated in this country so we can finally get out of this goddamn pandemic. You know, um, I don't know.
Don't ever
Like
watch the film. Don't look up. I think the film is called with DiCaprio. It just came out. Don't
yeah,
ever
yeah.
watch that film. Have you seen it?
I have not, but I read the synopsis. Like I
Don't.
understand.
It's depressing. It put me in a bad mood. Do not watch it
And
because if something like that were to happen, this would be that film would be a documentary. It's very
yeah,
depressing.
like people talk about was it called Pandemic, the Jude Law movie that came out before COVID that ended up being like, so that actually, like when people first watch it, they're like, no one would be trying to uh, put out disinformation to make money during a pandemic like in this movie, and then it ends up being much worse, like the situation we're in. Yeah, but yeah, I mean it's funny because it's like, so one of the early things that's really controversial with my European uh, viewers is what I once mentioned in a chat that I was very much supported circumcision. And what's funny though is that like that's such a minor medical issue compared to vaccination that it's like not even worth bringing up. Like, yeah, there are medical benefits to circumcision, but they just so pale in comparison to the medical benefits of vaccination that I just feel like, no, let's just focus on vaccination. Like, that's like, just get vaccinated. Stop with the with trying to convince people that your own antibodies will do it. Yeah, oh, yeah. I'm sorry that I said it was called Contagion. Yes, yes, that was the movie. Um, but yeah, it's I mean that's the thing is we have all these like allegories for global warming, and I mean even Ice and Fire is this, right? That like Ice and Fire is supposed to be a somewhat an allegory for global warming, and we spend all of our time bickering and fighting amongst ourselves, and um, you know that's the now this is interesting. Spotify paying Rogan to lie to people about COVID is not a free speech issue. People can say whatever they want. The corner of Spotify is choosing to amplify his voice for profit. Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. And this is a weird thing about like how people throw around the term free speech. Um, Free speech is about being able to say something without the government like punishing you for it. Like it doesn't mean that in the world you shouldn't have consequences, and especially if you're causing people harm, then free speech is limited. Like you're not the classic example is you're not allowed to yell fire in a crowded movie theater. And I think he's doing the equivalent of yelling fire in a crowded movie theater. He is causing people to die. And at that point, I would actually argue that the government has the right to shut down Joe Rogan. Like he is being nuts. Like he is killing people. But you know, do people have the backbone to do that? It would be such a scandal. But yeah, you're not allowed to yell fire in a crowded movie theater. And people say, "Oh, but it's my personal choice. It's my personal choice with my body." Well, it's my body yelling fire in a crowded movie theater. It's my personal choice to yell fire in a crowded movie theater. Every choice, every decision that we make in life is about personal choice versus the benefit of society. Every balance that we have is that. Um, Now on this, no. So mutilation, by definition, is useless carving up of something. So like, for instance, if I got my appendix out, that's not mutilation, you know? So we're talking about a procedure that is preventative for, you know, for STDs and penis cancer and all sorts of infections. Now, again, not worth talking about when vaccination is much more important. But circumcision is definitely has medical benefits. Like this isn't even up for debate. Like you can go to the New England Journal of Medicine, put in circumcision, and you can read all about it. Now, if you want to deny that the most regarded medical journal in the world is wrong, you just be like, no, they're biased. Then you're a fucking loony. But the American Pediatrics Association and the New England Journal of Medicine all, you know, all say that circumcision has medical benefits. So now, medical benefits aren't even close, are nowhere near the benefits of vaccination. So if we're talking about what's important, it's vaccination. Like, this is a very, 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 very minor issue. Okay, so like it's a very, very minor issue compared to vaccination. So, so if you have a little kid, you understand like how many rashes and stuff he gets down there, even when he's circumcised. So, by the way, 50% of men, the uncircumcised men, will go seek medical attention for their penis. 50%. If you're uncircumcised, 50% chance you will go to the doctor at some point because something with your penis. Okay. So, but again, everybody gets on this. Like they're trying to get me off of vaccination. Like circumcision, beneficial. All right. If you want to start claiming that it's not, you're against science. Just like the people that are claiming that vaccinations are not needed or harmful. They're not. All science backs it. So, you know. Oh my God. Like, oh my God. Like, dude. Like, do you question your own thing here? Like, what about all the people who have been vaccinated and still get COVID? The COVID vaccine is garbage. Like, I mean,
Godslayer, careful.
This is like such a bad take that I have to call you out. Like, what about all the people that wear seatbelts and still die in car accidents? Like, do you understand that like just because something is preventative doesn't mean it's 100%? Like the vaccine is garbage. Are seatbelts garbage? Are motorcycle helmets garbage? Like, have you ever questioned your own thought? Like, did you have any like introspection on like perhaps this thought I have has something wrong with it? Like the fact that like I can look at that and break it apart in 2 seconds makes me think you never even considered questioning your own beliefs. Like, how did you not think that? Like, did no one ever tell you that like, seatbelts help people not die in car accidents, yet people still die in car accidents because of seatbelts? Like, did you never ever think of this kind of thing? Did that never cross your mind? Like how did you put that forward thinking that was even a good idea? Like, you need to really like sit back and question like what you're doing. Like, how did you ever think that? How did you ever think that? Like, honestly, like 99% of people should be able to look at what you said and be like, that doesn't make sense. Like, where's the level of critical thinking there? Like, I'm being hard on you because it's a really, really dumb take. Like, it's really, really dumb. And I'm sorry for being so mean, but man, like, you really should think about like how you structure your thoughts. Like, that makes me really upset. Oh my God. No, it's not. Like, it's a preventative measure. It's not 100%. Like, that's it. Like, seatbelts, helmets, they help do something. They're not 100%. A vaccine's not going to be 100%. Whoever said it was. My God. Oh man. Like, who believes that, like, did anyone ever tell you that 100% of vaccine takers were going to like not die? No. You just have a much, much better chance of not dying if you get a vaccine. Much, much better chance. I think they said the survival rate for the vaccinated is like 8 to 10 times greater than the unvaccinated. I mean, it's rough. Like it's really really bad to not be vaccinated. Like go get your vaccine like now, please. Like now. Just get your vaccine. Like my god, we're like 2 years into this. I'm trying to save your fucking life and other people's lives. Like how do I Oh, it's tough. It's
Why do you
tough.
want to save their lives so badly? Just let them die. Let them go. Just let it go. Hey, less Republicans voting. Honestly, we get more seats. Less Republicans voting. It may sound harsh, but fuck them. Fuck them.
Maybe I wish that this were the case. Like, I actually don't believe he was actually a troll. I believe he actually believed that because I've heard that. Oh man. Oh well. Oh, all right. Let's see what else we got. Um. Da, da. Yeah, I mean, I do. I agree that it's okay to demonize people, but it's like on a one-to-one basis. It's also like what's the best way to convince people to change their mind? Like if you're really mean to somebody, are they gonna like go the other way just to spite you? Um, and so it's tough though at this point. Like what's gonna change their mind, right? Like what's you know. Um, but I agree. It's just I mean you're going out and you're making everything worse. Yeah, can you bring people to horse to water, but you can't make them drink? Oh,
Oh, by the way, did you hear what Trump said today?
oh no.
That he wants to pardon the January 6 guys. And I'm sitting here thinking, why would he want to pardon Antifa and FBI plant? Like, why would he want to do that?
Yeah, yeah. I I think he's putting it out there because a bunch of them uh, got called in to talk to the commission, and so he thinks that if he dangles a pardon, that they won't talk, that they'll be like, oh, Trump will save me, I can plead
That's
the fifth,
clever.
or something like that.
That's clever. That's
Yeah,
that's clever.
that's probably what's going on. So it's pretty tough. Um, yeah, let's see here. Preston will hold the horse's head underwater till that bitch drinks. um, see, it's like, yeah, I mean, I would have made, you know, vaccinations mandatory as they should have been. When we had vaccinations for people for schools like measles and mumps, like that kind of stuff, polio, like they showed up and they just shot people. They didn't ask. It just happened. It just happened. Uh, and there wasn't a big stink. So now people have just gotten that weird political idea about it. What's my favorite province after Taiwan? This is a big troll.
That's
Um,
funny though.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll give it a chuckle. Like what? Kinmen Island? I'll see that. Oh, um, time traveling Bran. The been working on it almost a little more than halfway through. Though I think I misjudged again, and I may have to go to a sixth part. We'll see. I have to record the second part and see how far it goes. But I'm pretty happy with the fifth part. But I don't know if I have more to say and can wrap things up. But it should be out in the next week. But um, people are scared, so I guess the solution is to get rid of democracy. Um, I don't see how COVID mandated vaccines, which by the way, it's not going to happen because courts are too filled with conservatives to make it happen. Um, I don't see that what that has to do with democracy. Democracy is when we vote for representatives for government. Like anytime you force like a populace to do something, like isn't against democracy. So, for instance, um, we are forced to pay taxes. We are forced to go to jury duty, and we are forced to register for the draft. And in times of war, we are forced to go to war. Um, those are all parts of our democracy. Like, I don't know, like, would people claim that, like, during World War II, when the draft was in full effect and we forced people to go and take bullets, get shot by bullets, like in war, that somehow we weren't a democracy? Like, what is the logic here? I don't get it. Like, do you think that like mandating a population to do something for the benefit of the whole is against the principle of voting? Like, how does that reason? Doesn't yeah. Have you seen Spartacus? I have not seen Spartacus.
I have seen Spartacus.
Yeah.
Good show. I did not like season 2 or 3 that much. Season 1 is great. Season 0, fantastic. Very
Oh,
good show.
okay, okay. Huh. Um,
If you like 300, you'd probably like Spartacus.
okay. All right. Yeah, no, I haven't seen it. I didn't. What is it on?
Showtime, I believe.
Okay.
It's an
Okay.
old show from like years ago. It's I give season 1 a try. Fuck it. I would give it a try if you're into stuff like 300.
Okay. All right. All right. Sounds good. Um, Now I know Preston is a commie. I don't understand. I like how on earth am I a commie? Like I don't get it. Like what did you find anything in what I said, like Carmine, like that think that like that promotes communism?
Dude, you gonna ask me what the
Am
fucking
I just
audience
picking the
thinks?
wrong things here? It's weird. Like, so the interesting thing about choosing like blah blah, like the history of calling people a commie in America is hilarious. Because if you go back to like the 1950s, 1960s, when we were talking about ending segregation in America, the slogans for the anti-segregationists was like integration is communism. Like you can look at these pictures of these protests. I mean, I'm not making this up. Like this was the whole thing. Like let's see. This is always the right wing like criticism of whatever the left wing is trying to do. Is whatever. Here we go. Now I take issue with it because like this was when integration and when they made um, here we go. Here's a couple here. Okay. So this is always the go-to. So for instance, this is when that's a web PA. That's too bad. Oh, I can take a picture of it. This has just been the history of America here. So when we tried to end segregation of schools, you have these like communists. They've integrated our churches. Now they integrate our schools. Like integration was communism. When they wanted to make interracial marriage legal, and keep in mind I'm married to somebody that's not white. Yep, race mixing. Race mixing is communism. Race mixing is communism. Everything is communism. You know. Anytime you want to make the world a better place, that's that's communism. And so like, oh, you want to do vaccines? Oh, that's communism. You know, it's so like you'd think after 70 years, like it would get old for right wingers, like to just declare everything that's against you communism, no matter how disgusting it is. You know, oh, Martin Luther King. Oh, you know what, Martin Luther King, communist. Oh gosh, everybody's a communist. That's it. Anytime you want to make the world a better place, anytime you want to do something, anytime Democrats do something, you know, that's a that's a it's communism. Doesn't really make sense. Like communism, that do I think I want everybody to live in a commune with like shared 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 property? Like what is it coming from? Like
Yes.
what did I say that makes you think that like I want people to live in communes with shared property? Like how does that work, um I don't know. It's just it's very very weird. um ta, 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 ta.
The race mixing thing is communism. I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember a couple years ago when we were doing the season 8 live streaming thing?
Yeah.
Someone said that you were somehow racist because you married an Asian woman instead of
Mm.
sticking to your own people. And this person was actually someone that had been roaming around for quite some time, and they were leftists as well. These are
Yeah.
like an example of the toxic left. But
Mm.
they were basically saying if you were a true ally, you would not mix white and Asian or something. I don't know. The comment
Oh, you
section out
you
of their
you
fucking
definitely run into them too. I mean, there's definitely like, oh, you've got some sort of weird like appropriation idea, or you have some sort of like deep seated belief that your wife is exotic and based on some sort of racist principle. You definitely get those like weirdo left wingers as well. I mean, the toxic left is a real thing. Uh, like people like Thought Slime. Like I hate that motherfucker.
who's that?
There's this super lefty named Thought Slime, and like every video he puts out is him talking in the most condescending voice possible about how everybody in the world is horribly racist and sexist, and that the Democrats are just as bad as the Republicans, and that you should not vote for any of them. And like he's just like once you go past the point where you're supporting Democrats, I consider you like a lost cause and an enemy as well. Like you're not helping. Like the only way you're going to help the world is through like voting for Democrats. Like at this point in our life, when we get to a point where Democrats have enough power, then maybe I'd start talking about having like a party to the left of the Democrats. But first, we've got to like fend off the conservatives, who are fucking powerful. Um, the so it's so yeah, it's just I don't know if you should ever watch a video of his, but it's just like it's the same sort of thing where oh, we need to take all of the power away from white males. Like that's how he frames everything, like oh gosh. But
Oh,
yeah,
he's
these
one of those.
these toxic left wing people, yeah, no, they exist. They exist. I think the toxic right wing people are much more um, uh, are much more a danger because they have political power. Like when I think of like toxic left wing, like the worst they can do is annoy you on Twitter, or annoy you like at a party. Like they don't hold office to actually like change laws and like destroy your life like conservatives do. So when I think of like the toxic left wing, it's like yeah, they're annoying, but they have no power, so
They don't have any power politically. I agree with you there, but it does start to like it's a problem when certain companies start taking cues from them. Like the whole James Gunn thing was stupid.
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, well, the James Gunn thing was like those are right wing trolls.
It was. I would argue it was right wing trolls at first, but then the left started piling up on him because the left, as you said before, loves to eat itself.
Well, I mean, I
So
think that they were able to trigger a bunch of like follower, like spineless, toxic left wingers, but it was like some right wing trolls like orchestrated that whole thing. Um, yeah. Um, but yeah, but I mean, and plus like the Disney executives falling for it, um, was the issue. Um, do liberals do the same thing as conservatives do when they say fascism? I mean, it's not that I don't see people throwing around the fascist word a lot or the Nazi word a lot. But at least fascism, I mean, and it's not that there's not a point in that, but fascism better describes what the right wing is doing versus calling everybody a commie. Like, communism doesn't actually describe anything the left wing is doing. While like fascism is more just because fascism has less of a true definition. Fascism is just kind of like this autocratic right wing rule. Um, Anytime the government does something, they're they're doing some level of autocracy, right? Like you're having some sort of level of power. Well, like communism doesn't describe anything in the left wing. So like I don't know. Like I don't know. Like I can't say like if you added up the number of people that screamed fascism versus screamed commie, if they would be the same. But even if I agree, even if we assume that they are the same, like fascism is a more accurate definition than communism. Um, I don't know if there is a word I mean, you'd have to use something like Stalinism or something like, this idea of like left wing autocracy. Um, but they always use communism, you know. Um, but that's that's what they're getting at. Uh, uh, uh.
well, the new word nowadays is not communism; it's socialism. Every left wing person is a socialist.
Yeah, problem is, that's another one because socialism has too huge of a definition. It means so many things that we're not that. But I mean, if we're talking about like public ownership of capital, like what public ownership of capital for what? Like who's against fire departments and state parks?
You think a lot of these right wingers have thought this out? No.
No, yeah, exactly. I mean, everybody has their scare words. Um, Democrats are controlled opposition. Uh, the problem that I see with the Democrats is that they're never given enough power to do anything. They're given they squeak out these bare bone wins, and of course, like our structure of our country makes it so that the Republicans always have the Senate, or nearly always have the Senate, and so the Democrats are never able to have the power to sort of neutralize the Republicans, and then the Republicans wait it out and get into power again and make things more right wing. So when the Democrats are in power, they're neutralized and never have enough, and then when the Republicans get into power, they fucking ram everything through. So um, we're in a bad situation. So we can't undo a lot of things or save the Supreme Court or all sorts of things because the way things are structured, and right now because the pendulum swings, but every time the Democrats get into power, they don't do anything. They can't do anything. Like maybe if they had more power, but Manchin and Sinema are just like stop us. It's too. And I do not believe this. Like one party believes climate change is a real thing. One party does not. One party believes, in the woman's right to choose, and one party does not. Like if you're saying that they're the same thing, it means you don't value those issues at all. Like you're saying those issues are irrelevant to you. That they're just, oh, it's all the same. Like those are pretty big issues, and you're saying those are like there's no difference between Republicans and Democrats. Like I've just named two huge issues, and you're saying that those issues don't matter. Like, you know, like those are pretty big issues. Like pretty distinct differences between red and blue on those, you know? So I don't buy it. Like you always like the Democrats are always going to be the better party to vote for. Um, Greetings from South Australia. Love your work. How do you feel about unions? Well, we talked about this a little last time. Um, like I don't have any problem with unions, but I've never had a special interest in them because I kind of feel like all of the things that unions do should have been law in the first place. But because we don't have those laws, the unions had to come about. Like there should be good working conditions. There should be limited hours on stuff, So like I don't necessarily think that like the principle of collective bargaining is like that fantastic because you end up, in many ways like you collectively bargain, you get your wages higher, and then your firm can't compete because you have higher wages and things like that, and then your firm fails. Is the thing with the airlines, for example. But if everybody were treated and had good conditions guaranteed by the government, and guaranteed, you want that to be international too. You want good working conditions and environmental regulations internationally to make things sort of equal. Then we wouldn't need unions. And so, I mean, I don't mind unions. I like unions when they vote for Democrats. But in my ideal utopia, they wouldn't necessarily be needed. It's sort of like, how do I feel about charity? Like, I think charity organizations are great, but I also think that the services that charity organizations provide should have been provided by the government. Like we shouldn't need charity organizations to like save people because the government's social safety net isn't doing it. So that's kind of my feeling about unions. Like they're there because government isn't stepping up to provide the social safety nets. So, that's but that's about it. It's funny, as way back in the day, I used to date a girl who was working for AFL-CIO, and she would scream at me. She's just like, "No, you're a fucking moron. you don't understand a thing." And maybe I am a moron. I don't really know that much about unions, so I would yeah, but so I'm not the best person to really take union knowledge on, but in my sort of belief that the government should be providing all of these things. Do you think Conservative Party in UK is conservative compared to America? No. I mean, the only people that are conservative compared to Conservative Party in America is like Middle East politics, Afghanistan. Like, I don't know if in the UK, for example, are 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 the Tories trying to ban abortion and get funding for religious schools and change U.S. history to claim that slavery didn't happen and that the U.S. was founded as a Christian state and all of these things that the right wing tries to do here. I don't know. It's I can't imagine it. I mean, Europeans tell me that no, our conservative parties aren't anywhere close to your conservative parties, but what are we going to do? Hope you can all hear my toddler screaming about nap time. Yeah, I truly believe the American Taliban is what we have here. There's a lot of similarities, actually. The I mean, not just like the gun love and the religion love and the sexism, but there's with Taliban. So the Taliban movement fundamentally kind of believes that the Pashtuns are the true Afghans, that those are the real Afghans, and that everybody else aren't real Afghans, and they need to leave. The Uzbeks back to Uzbekistan, the Tajiks back to Tajikistan, the Hazara into the ground, as they say. Pretty brutal kind of stuff. And there's that same kind of concept with like right wingers in America. There's this like, you're not a real American. Like even when right wingers talk to me, they're like, "Oh, you're not a real American. You need to leave." Like real Americans are like me. Like there's this there's this there's this refusal to believe that America is pluralistic kind of society that has many different types of people in it. Um, and so it in many ways, it's like Taliban is very much like the American right wing. There's such similarities, such similarities. Yeah. Um, mm, mm, mm. um, I so half of this um, I agree with. I mean, I do believe in serious campaign finance reform. I mean, I believe that in the end of, I believe there shouldn't be lobbyists. I believe that the state should probably set up too little funds and have a limited amount of money to provide um, uh, money for elections. Um, I don't believe that whoever's richest should just be able to like donate to whoever to get these bad parties in power. And this is specifically like Adam Smith's big fear about like the capitalist system is that money can start influencing politics. So in a sense, like I'm being super capitalist here, super Adam Smith when I say like I definitely fear money like influencing elections. Um, Now, I do think that blue no matter who is better than Republican is an accurate like idea because people vote in blocks, and so I will always vote for a Democrat over a Republican. Um, like one can argue that as bad as Manchin and Sinema are, they're still better than having two Republicans in there, which because they at least voted for some things that are for instance, they're not going to block Biden's Supreme Court nominee. Like um, so I agree that the election cycles are incredibly corrupt and we need to get money out. But um, you know, so mm-mm.
By the way, Preston, you there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So someone brought up a super chat, I believe. It was, how do you think Stannis will die in the books? To bring it back to Ice and Fire for a minute, if you think he'll die.
If I think he's gonna, his, I think that um, the big thing is that if he's gonna die, he was arrogant and thought Ramsay was nobody, that nobody said he should fear, and that somehow he might win against Roos's army, but later when he has to fight against Ramsay, he might lose because he's been underestimating him. So I think he will, like right now, because he was so arrogant in Theon One, the Winds of Winter. Like it does seem like perhaps Ramsay is going to eke out some sort of win, that kills Stannis somehow. Um, but that's my kind of prevailing thought. But and it again relies a little bit on show crutch. Um, Here, so let's see here. Da, 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 da. Any what percentage of circumcised men seek medical attention for their wang? About half will go to the doctor at some point. I'm not saying they're going to get something serious like penis cancer. Like penis cancer is like 1 in 1,000 get penis cancer. Um, you know, there's STD things, AIDS and HPV transmission. There's a significant reduction if you're circumcised, and so in Africa, a lot more men are getting circumcised. As much as like people think that the hippie anti-circumcision movement is growing because they're very loud, globally speaking and nationally speaking, more and more people are getting circumcised. So it's actually going the way of, it's going the right medical way. Spartacus, Stannis loses his head, heads to the Night Fort, gets his men to take the black, elected 99th Lord Commander, opens the gate to kill and go. The champions. I mean, this is the prediction on Stannis. We all wish, but I think at some point we know that the others are gonna start killing. So they've got to start slaughtering people, right? I mean, Stennis, even if he wins in the short term, he loses in the long run, right? Doesn't he? If we kind of know that Brand's going to win in the end. Um, let's see. Do you think you're going to do a video series on the Iron King and how it relates to A Song of Ice and Fire? Do you know what this is, Carmine? Iron King?
Assuming it has something to do with the Iron Islands, Iron King.
Um, I don't know. There's something called the Iron Fae series. Um, Not sure what this is about. The first book is called The Iron King. I'm not sure what this is about. Um, but I don't know if it's that. Um, but I mean, I did a Ironborn series a long time ago called Alliances of Iron, where I cover a lot of the Ironborn stuff. I haven't thought about going back. I'm not sure if there's more I would cover there. I think my next series, if I do one, besides I got to focus on the Rogue Prince and Princess and the Queen, but I think my next series is going to be on the Harrenhal tourney. So that might after I finish with time traveling Brand.
One. It's a good topic.
Um,
Everybody loves.
I'm sorry.
That's a good topic. Everybody loves Harrenhal.
Yeah, I know. So I think there might be some interesting stuff in there. I haven't looked at it at all, really. Um, as a liberal capitalist can rectify capitalism needing infinite growth on a finite resource planet. This is this is a big split between two schools of thought with environmental economics and ecological economics. And the ecological economists believe that no, um, that growth of GDP is a direct loss of natural resources, while the environmental economists believe that you can switch to service-based economies and such, and grow the economy in other ways other than using resources. I think there's truth in both of them, but I think you're right that infinite growth is a bad way to look at things. I think as a society, we need to stop focusing on GDP growth and more consumption. I mean, at some point, you just kind of, how much more crap do you need? Like Christmas rolls around and people are like, what do you want for Christmas? It's like, I have everything I need. I don't like, what do I want? I don't need anything more. Um, I'm constantly looking to throw things away. Like, things are junky, so I think that needs to be kind of a mentality. Now, of course, like most people, like, they're worried about things like medical and education, stuff like that, well, like buying more shit from Walmart or whatever is maybe not on their minds. And if they had money, maybe they could get to that. But yeah, like we definitely need to somehow figure out a way to limit growth and not think and get to the point where we're not consuming so many resources. I mean, I think environmentalism should be a prime issue. Like it's funny that people vote on really stupid things like critical race theory or whatever, and when they should be voting on environmental issues, like that should be like the number one thing people are thinking about. Like the number one threat to the world is definitely climate change and environmental destruction, and yet it never seems to be the thing that people vote at the ballot box for. I mean, we're finally starting to see like big grand changes in the environment, and so maybe people are going to start thinking about it. But the problem is no one believes it. They're like, oh, a hurricane destroyed my house. Well, no, it wasn't climate change. What can we do? So it's tough. I don't necessarily think that like switching away from capitalism will somehow solve the problem of environmental destruction. I think you need good minds, scientists in power, politicians that help them to really to really get to these solutions. You need government funding for, you know, good science to try to overcome a lot of these problems. It's yeah, I mean, I'm sorry for such a seemingly wishy-washy answer, but it's like I don't necessarily like capitalism. Yes, human growth is a problem. I don't necessarily think that's capitalism problem by itself, but GDP and being focused on GDP, and focusing on just consuming more and more and more is 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 not exactly like the thing to do. Um, we need to start thinking about um, finding utility and getting utility from things that are not so physical and easily calculated in GDP. But it's a toughie. It's a tough. I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know how. We just need to start electing more people that are environmentally um, minded. Um, it's really sad how every time a king or lord says that they are safe, and yeah, I got this. Yeah, stabby time. Expectations. Do you think Lady Dustin has a son? Why was she? No, I don't think she has a son. I think the implication is that um, her husband died in war. Her husband and son died in war, and um, that she never remarried again or had a kid, which is a little weird. You'd think that she'd be hot commodity, Lady Dustin. Um, People were trying to marry Catelyn. Lady Dustin was probably young enough back in the day. Did Lady Dustin have a son? I've got to look this up. I know her husband died, obviously, and she was super bitter about that. Um, but she's a handsome woman, older woman in the time of ice and fire. No, I guess she doesn't. She doesn't have a son. But yeah, so Roger Rickard, yeah. One would think, because they didn't have any kids. Um, One would think that someone would have wanted to marry her and take Barrowton, but she never did. She just stayed bitter and angry about it. But yeah, was she allowed to rule? She was allowed to rule because there was nobody else, um, which was the weird. Da, 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 da. Won't John let it go? I'm just getting through these super chats here. Trying to read. Asha, we talked about this. Sisters, we talked about this. Darkest Story, probably Pear-Shaped Man. CRT, we've talked about that. We could talk more about the Maesters. What kind of story? Theon, Map of Westeros, Cackling Old Nan. There are no complaints, only feedback. What's up with Peter Dinklage? We're back. We can talk about the Dink. So the Dink just said that Carmine and I
We did a.
we talked a bit on Carmine's channel about the Dink bitching about Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, and the ridiculousness of that. I think once I thought about it, I'm on the Dink side. But he said that the House of the Dragon, he just wanted it to stand on its own. He didn't want it to copy Game of Thrones. But if they include Mushroom, it's hard not to make the comparisons. But has Mushroom been cast? There hasn't been like Mushroom cast, has there?
I don't think so. I don't think they're going to include Mushroom because of that one specific thing. Because you had a little person in a Game of Thrones, and now you're having a little person in House of the Dragon. It's the comparisons are just going to be there, which is I always found it weird when we were going through Fire and Blood, and Mushroom has his testaments of what really happened. I've always loved them, but I found it so fucking weird that he goes into such intricate detail about people fucking each other and all the orgies and insanities. And the fact that no one bats an eye to this gesture dwarf guy in the corner is crazy. I would love just that specific thing. I would love a sex scene where there's a dwarf just staring in the
Standing in the corner.
corner with his like eyes just bulge. Yeah, like that would be great. Fuck, hire me. Fuck, I'll do it. I'll put on the jester's outfit. I'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, and when George R. R. Martin redid Fire and Blood, like, so when he did Princess and the Queen and Rogue Prince, Mushroom is there as a character and a perspective, but he's not that much of a character integrated into it. But then when he did Fire and Blood, he made Mushroom an advisor to Rhaenyra, which changes the whole dynamic, because all of a sudden you're like, oh, Rhaenyra, this really powerful woman who like has a right to the throne, but no one wants to give it to her because she's a woman. She has a little person, an advisor. Like, clearly this sounds like Daenerys, with her dragons wanting the throne. No one wanting her to rule because, she's a woman with a little person advisor. Like, it's too close of a comparison. And so I think if you put that on screen, like when he wrote these things, I don't know if he was thinking that this would ever be put to screen, but it's rather clear that now it is, and it'd be a little too obvious.
Well, there's no way they're gonna escape the comparisons because aren't there? It's been a while since we did Fire and Blood. Aren't there like Lannister twins in Fire and Blood as well?
Yeah,
Lyman
yeah.
Lannister.
I think the two members of the Kingsguard.
No, the Lannister twins.
Oh, I
I
think
believe
that too. I think there's a bunch of twins. Now that I think
Jason
about it.
Lannister. I'm getting his name right. Jason Lannister in the Giants of Dragons. Blah, blah, blah. Where's Jason?
Somebody said people bang in front of their pets. Same with Mushroom. Really disappointed that Little Women wasn't actually about Little Women. This is a funny thing. Two little people existing in the same country, hundreds of years apart. Unacceptable. There's a. Did you ever, Carmine? Did you ever see the Aziz Ansari series back in the day? Before he got canceled, his show on
Is he
Netflix.
still uplifted his cancellation?
No, I mean he came back with a third season of his show and everything, but he's kind of he's on the DL right now. He's still doing stand-up specials and stuff. He's trying to build himself back up. But remember, he was like big deal, right? Because everybody's like, oh, Parks and Rec. And now he's got his own show, and everybody loved his show, and his perspective on dating, and his stand-up specials were going great. And then all of a sudden, he has a bad date, and no one wanted to see him for a second. But he had an episode in the show where he's an actor and he's trying to get a gig, and he shows up and there's another Indian guy trying out for the same role. Or no, it's a show with three guys in an apartment. And that's the premise of the show, is three guys in an apartment. And like he sees another Indian guy and he's like, oh crap. Like, because it turns out him and the other Indian guy are both like really strong. But the producers are like, look, we loved you both, but we can't have a show with like two Indian guys, because then it'll be a show about Indian guys. And they're like, right, but it's just a coincidence that we both happen to be Indian. Like, that can happen in the real world. And they're like, yeah, but like they're like, it's just gotten to the point in this society where you can have two black people on a show and it being all right, Like, I was thinking about New Girl, how there's two black characters, Coach and Winston, and it's like not a big deal that in the friend group there just happens to be two black guys. But that's like pretty new, that you can have more than one of a particular ethnicity. So I think it's the same thing with little people at this point. Like, you can't have more than one little person in your story. Do I think the Sand Snakes are doomed? Obara sent hunting Darkstar, Lady Nim and Taid sent to King's Landing, Sorel and Old Town. Not to mention Elia being on Ariana's quest. I mean, not in the short term. And I think in the short term, the Sand Snakes are going to be causing quite a bit of trouble. I do not think the Sand Snakes are going to be killed off so easily like they were in the show. I mean, in the show, they were killed off because they were hated by the fans, but that's not the case in the book. Like in the book, there are these interesting little side characters that are in the most interesting places. You know, Old Town, among the faith, on the small council, like next to Ariana on her quest, like so much coolness. There's so much opportunity for them. I can't see them. I mean, the only one that could possibly die, who is in current danger to die, is Obara, right? But so maybe you could see Obara, but Obara is the least interesting of the Sand Snakes, right? Like the rest of them are so much cooler. But I don't think they're going to die anytime soon. Certainly not all of them. Like it was so easy in the show because they were just all together. So they're like, well, we'll just slaughter them off. There's fewer of them too. But I guess they only killed 2 off and then 1 later on. But it was. But I think that I'm hoping they're going to have a big role because they've built up so much, like placing the Sand Snakes in all of these places, introducing them. It took a while. We've just gotten to the point where we seem to know them, you know? Do you think Bran as king will really be himself, or could he be a skin change Bloodraven or Children of the Forest? I tend to think that it's Bran. I think that the Bloodraven and the Children of the Forest are more puppets or puppet masters that have another puppet master above them that they're not aware of. I mean, Bran's the time traveler, you know? Oh man, my toddler. He's having such a tough time sleeping. But I better go actually check on him and help out. Did I give everybody thank you, ad script. But thank you everyone. Thank you, Carmine, for joining me. But
Of course.
yeah, my toddler.
No
All right.
worries, homie.
Yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks everyone.